Hi everyone, we're here with 4-1 work together right now. There are a couple of things that we're going to be doing. There are actually 3 steps to this problem. The basics of what we're doing is we are assigning account numbers a 3-digit number. We talked in class about the principles of how you actually assign the numbers, how you figure out the order and things like that. If you need a quick refresher on how to do that, please look to the notes that are on Schoology under materials for section 4-1, and it talks about how we come up with the principles and the process for ordering these items up. So we're going to go ahead and on step 1, we're going to just say what classification certain accounts have. Your options are your 5 account classifications: assets, liabilities, owner's equity, revenue, and expenses. So what we're going to do is we're just going to go through really quickly and say where they lie. So accounts payable, liability; accounts receivable, asset; accounts payable, liability; accounts receivable, asset; miscellaneous expense, expense; insurance expense, expense; prepaid insurance, asset; drawing, owner's equity; cash, asset; sales is revenue; supplies, asset; supplies expense, expense; automobile expense, expense; capital, owner's equity; and rent expense is an expense. So this step right here should have come to you pretty easily, because again, it's things that we went over in chapter 2 and chapter 3. You should know these classifications by this point. So we're going to go ahead and go to the next step. Okay, assigning account numbers is what we're doing next. And remember, there's different ways that we assign them depending on the classification. Assets, again, we talked about it in our notes, how we assign those most liquid to least liquid. We also count by tens. That first digit deals with the classification area, assets being 1, liabilities 2, owner's equity 3, revenue 4, expenses 5. Then the last 2 digits are how we count off by tens, starting counting off by 10. We don't ever start at 100, we actually start at 110. How we count off by tens, and then we put these in order, most liquid to least liquid. So we talked about how our most liquid is cash. So we're going to give cash 110. We said that petty cash is our second most liquid, but we don't have petty cash as an option here. The next place we go to are our accounts receivable. Then accounts receivable, how we order those is alphabetically. So we have North, Verez, obviously North would come first. So we're going to do 120 for North, 130 for Verez. Then we talked about how supplies is our next option, 140, and last, prepaid insurance at 150. Again, we're counting by tens. We talked about in the notes why we count by tens. So if again you need to refresh yourself on that, please look back to the notes. Okay, liabilities we order by alphabetically. So we're starting with 2s here because we're in liabilities. So 210 is going to be our first one. And we're going to talk about Anoka Supplies versus Supply Mart. Anoka, we're going to use the A in Anoka. S, we'll use the S in Supply Mart. So we're going to use Anoka first because we list them alphabetically. So 210, 220. For owner's equity, we do our capital first, then our drawing. So capital, 310, drawing, 320. Revenue is pretty easy. There's no need to order it up. You only have one account. So sales is going to be 410. And expenses are listed alphabetically. So we're going to go through the list. Again, we're starting with a 5 because that's our classification. We're counting off by tens. Automobile expense will be 510. Insurance expense, 520. Miscellaneous expense, 530. Rent expense, 540. And supplies expense, 550. Go ahead and go to the next step, please. Okay, so you can see we have our completed chart of accounts here. We put this together. We told it what classifications all of these accounts need to fall under, and we also gave them all a number. So we completed that. What we're going to do next is answer a few questions dealing with the account. So it says Miss Seville had been classifying postage cost as miscellaneous expense, but has found that the amount paid each month for postage has become a major expense and has decided to use a separate account, postage expense. Also, a new account, utilities expense, is to be added to the chart of accounts. Account number blank should be assigned to postage expense. Account number blank should be assigned to utilities expense. Now remember, we count off by those 10 so that we have some room in between if we have to add in accounts, and that way we're not having to renumber our whole chart of accounts. Because if we look, obviously postage expense is going to fall in between miscellaneous and rent. So what we're going to do is we are going to count off by fives when we add something in the middle. So we're going to say 535 for postage. Now, account number blank should be added to utilities. Utilities just falls nicely at the end of our list, so we'll just keep continuing on counting by 10. So we're going to say 560. All right, and the last thing, it says a blank general ledger is shown here with the locations identified by numbers. Use the numbers to answer the questions to open the cash account. To open up a ledger, very simple. All you have to do is put the account title up here, and you just have to put the account number right here. So what value is entered in location 1? Well, again, I have to put the account title, which they told me they want me to open it up for cash. Now, the account number, I look back up to my chart of accounts. Cash has a number of 110. So I'm going to go down here, fill in 110, and that's that. Please go ahead and save this. That is it for 4-1 Work Together.